Check 1, 2. Test, test, test.
Okay.
Did you make it live? I'm not seeing it on your screen.
Your screen isn't updating at all, so we're kind of in the dark here.
That's better.
Yeah, it doesn't update unless I'm focused on it.
Well, that makes sense. Before we actually go live, I have a couple questions. Do you guys have friends and family that listen? Like non-geek people?
To find friends. Yeah.
So,
my boy Andy.
I missed the question. What was it?
I was asking if you had friends and family that listen.
Because I don't think so.
I found out recently that got like my dad, my mother-in-law, friends all listen and kind of tease me. Like, didn't realize how much of a geek I was.
Why did you want to do that? Why did you want to talk about that before we went live? That's perfect show material, man.
Nah, not yet. You guys have known me for like 8 years, right?
Yeah.
Long time.
We are streaming, though. We are streaming.
I know.
Yeah.
A lot of those people I mentioned have known me my entire life, or most of it. And I have trouble talking to them about things. And thought, do it here. And you guys obviously know my lifestyle change over the past couple of years.
But that the marriage is a fraud and you're in love with another man?
Yeah, that one. Has my lifestyle changed? Have you thought about that in any way, or am I just some extreme vegan nut job to you guys?
I thought about it.
What do you mean thought about it? The conversations on it, but I mean,
right.
I don't sit up at night thinking about it particularly.
Well, because I say that because I was the same way. I thought vegetarians, vegans were crazy nut jobs, but I didn't have anyone close to me.
Don't say you were the same way. I never said that, and I don't believe that. So
okay.
So don't categorize me as that. I've never said that.
I've said that plenty.
And I still
I have lots of people that seem to classify me that way or don't take things seriously. So I'm just asking if it's made you think, because it's hard for me. I've seen tigers skinned alive fighting for water.
What are we supposed to be thinking of? Thinking of you specifically, or thinking about your belief system?
Thinking about the system, not my belief system.
Okay.
The system in whole.
Okay, so the ethical and the moralities you've recently embraced is what you're talking about. Yeah, mm-hmm. I haven't thought about it any differently than I've ever thought about it. I have a strong desire for sustainable food. I have a strong desire to make sure everybody in the country is nourished. I know there are food deserts. I know there are people who don't get food, who aren't properly nourished. I still have those beliefs. Again, I have a real desire for sustainable food, but I definitely don't feel that translates to veganism by any means. So no, I haven't changed anything about the way I thought or.
My whole point is more reaching out to my friends and family that don't seem to talk to me about this stuff, and I find it hard to talk to them. And it's sad that it's not more discussed.
And it's funny because a lot of very passionate and enthusiastic religious people feel the same way, that they are categorized as crazy, that they have this insight, this morality that they've discovered that they want to share, and they don't understand why other people don't embrace it. And you do have it is to them, and you do have this very militant fucking attitude about it, where it's like, well, no, this is harmful. There's not a discussion with you. We've established that a while back. I mean, you're having a discussion with you about this is more like you're just waiting to snipe people. Like I felt that way having a conversation with you. Like you're just waiting for me to say something because you wanted to, there was a response that you're waiting to give me. So that's why it's difficult to have that conversation. It's difficult to have a conversation with somebody who has a different ethical and moral stance than you do, because there's this sense of judgment, there's a sense of extremism, there doesn't seem to be a middle ground, there doesn't seem to be a conversation. I mean, it's not that they don't care about you or love you, it's just it's not a conversation that people who are very close to you probably want to engage with you on. So, and that's how I feel about it personally.
Okay. I mean, I have a whole thing here I was going to say, but fuck it.
I apologize. No, say it, man. I thought you were asking us. Feel free to say it. No, I don't want you to. I don't want you to think you're being silenced. I want you to be able to talk. I thought you were asking us questions and you were looking for honest responses.
Yeah, I'm done. It's okay.
Man,
we could start
like
this
shit.
No, don't feel like shit. It's kind of where what I expected. It was more, like I said, it wasn't necessarily meant to target you, and I'm fully prepared to be like shunned from the show and like.
There's no reason for that. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, do you have a problem interacting with us?
No, I don't have a problem interacting with you.
Why would we have a problem interacting with you?
I'm not saying you have a problem interacting with me.
Okay.
I think one thing that I've changed is the counterpoint of people who are vegan and vegetarian, which is people get very defensive about their choice to eat meat and will mock people who are vegans or vegetarians for being extremists or for being just the way that they are about it. And I stopped doing that. I don't, I don't tell vegetarians how much I love bacon.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely, quickly discovered that this is not a lighthearted, joking topic that we could have between us. Right. This isn't a Vim discussion or anything like that where we can goof off and razz each other about it.
Seriously.
I mean, it is a very important part of my life, Thomas.
I can see your Trello board.
All right, we can start the show now.
All right. Oh, Eric does the intros. That's right.
I'm having a hard time getting there. All right, let's give this a shot. Jesus. This is a weird one. Okay. You're listening to episode 205 of PHP Ugly, coming to you from the inferno of a state called California, which has been rumored to be set ablaze by a Laravel 8 reveal party. We're still looking into that. I am your host, Eric Van Johnson, and with me are my friends John Conklin.
Hello.
And Thomas Rideout.
Hello. I'm playing with OBS again.
We're just not going to have your focus at all, are we?
Not in the slightest bit.
But it's okay. I have enough topics this week. I think I can carry the entire show. We had a very exciting week in the Laravel world, and I'm happy to say I have feedback.
You have feedback.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started.
You said you could carry the show.
I don't hear feedback.
feel like this is going to really go well. Okay, so this week Laravel 8 was released. So Laravel 8 is now the current version of Laravel, which was fun. I immediately installed it and brought a project that we've been waiting to do up to Laravel 8 and got it deployed. So it was nice because it gave me some insight on some of the things I had questions about. And I definitely wanted to come to you guys with that kind of information because I know I misrepresented some of the topics. The big one was the schema dump stuff. So I did take a closer look at the schema dump after I got it installed on my project and just saw exactly what it did. First off, I saw no evidence that it dumps the data. It's just the schemas. Well, there's a caveat to that, but in general, it doesn't dump the data. It just dumps the schema. It doesn't delete the migrations by default either. It doesn't even move them. It keeps them in the migration folder. So all the migrations stay there. It doesn't delete them. There is a switch you can throw called prune, which does delete the migrations. I have no idea why you would ever do this, why you would ever delete your existing migrations. But if you ever wanted to, there's now a command that lets you do it. It seems like a bad idea, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. Now, I said there was one caveat to the fact that it doesn't export data. This is actually the thing that differentiates it from doing just a MySQL dump, which is the conversation we had about, well, why wouldn't you just MySQL dump this? MySQL dump is so much faster. And it is. But at the very end of the schema dump, at the very end, it does dump the data from the migrations table. So essentially, that's how it knows where it's at, like how much. So essentially, when you do a artisan migrate, it first looks for the schema dump file. If it does that, it runs it, and then it sees what migrations aren't in the migration table and starts running those. That's how it all works. So go ahead.
I was gonna say I could see that being faster for very large tables or large numbers of tables, but still creating schema is normally pretty quick. The slow part in getting my local system set up is all the data I also need in order to make the system work.
So this brings me to 2 points. That's a great point, and something I've been thinking about, and would appreciate your input, John, and obviously Tom, if you have an idea on this as well. But we had mentioned in the past how our workflow was always, if there was data that was required in a table. So let's just say for the user table, we always want to make sure we have a DiegoDev admin user in that table. Our workflow, not policy, but our workflow in the past has been, we add that in the migration. We don't add it as a separate seeder. Seeders is meant to populate data. I use it mainly to populate factories, but maybe we put some known data in there. But it's not meant to be like part of a release of the data of an application. So we always put it in the migration. Now, obviously, if we were to take advantage of the SQL dump, that wouldn't work. So the question is, do we consider our workflow and start putting that data in the seeders and then just start doing some, if statements of, okay, if this is in production, only seed it with this known data. If this was development, you can throw some factories in here.
That seems like it's asking for trouble.
Yeah, that's why I always put the known necessary data in the migration. Was that runs automatically through CI or my CI/CD pipelines, right? So when a migration runs, the data is in all environments, from dev, testing, staging, production. I don't have to worry about it. Where if you put it in a seeder, you have to know to run it, or like you're saying, put these weird flags in there, which is asking for trouble. You screw that up somehow, and all of a sudden you got data that you don't want in production.
We have hotfix migrations. So we have a different migration directory that only executes for production.
But that's for production data. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But in general, for like the system I work on, there is data that, because the code is 15 years old, there's a lot of legacy crap that comes with it, and there has to be certain like user records, and it kind of has to be the same across all environments because they use magic IDs or whatever. So that data for us makes more sense in a migration. It's not necessarily a production only thing.
Yeah, and these aren't like hard and fast rules. You know,
Well, it is if you're going to use this schema dump.
That's the problem. It is a hard and fast rule if you want to use the schema dump. Yeah,
I'm still not sure. I'm still not fully understanding the purpose of it, other than a very large database structure where you can do it in one file versus running lots of migrations. But the migration should be pretty quick.
I agree with you. I'm even working on a project now that has a few hundred migrations in it, and I'm working on it in a dev environment. Yeah, it takes a minute or two for all the migrations to run, but it's not like it's not like I can't do any work or the world is going to spin for the next 2 minutes. It just doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Now, I did think of one potential use case that we may be able to make the argument where this would help us. And this is only if you could teach all your developers this workflow, but if you did a schema dump before every pull request, that would resolve the issue, for example, we see in DigitalOcean, where it won't run the migration unless you add that additional line. But again, you're talking about adding one additional line. I mean, what's harder to remember, to add one additional line to a migration or to run a schema dump before you do a PR? So that's kind of like the only potential, like, okay, well, that would have helped us there, maybe, probably, but
did they include any use cases when they announced the feature? Like what their use case was for creating it?
The only ones I've heard, to answer your question, no, I still have yet to watch the actual whole talk. So this is just, I looked into it after I deployed it and started saying, okay, what is this schema dump exactly? Oh, and Jeffrey Way also has a whole series on Laracast now, what's new in Laravel 8. If you're curious, that series, I believe the whole series is free. I can't tell. I even tweeted to Jeffrey Way. I can't tell looking at a video what's free, what's not free. I always have to like paste it into a incognito browser to see if I can still see it. But I believe the whole series of what's new in Laravel 8 is free on Laracast.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay. Sorry, I happened to look real quick on Laravel News. Somebody wrote an article, and it's meant to speed up your tests because you're running migrations on every single push, up to your CI/CD system. Mm-hmm. And I guess running the dump file is much faster than running individual migrations.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't know how big of a. I don't know. I mean, I guess if people find it handy, there's no reason not to have it. I don't think I'm going to use it. I just don't have a need to use it. I don't know. Yeah.
Kind of a long. 2 hours. I don't care about how long that migration extra second shaved or whatever is.
That's a good point. In this project I'm working on, it spends more time on the seeders than it does the migrations just fly through. So
which you would expect. I don't know I guess if you're doing hundreds of pull requests or runs of your continuous integration system, maybe it would help, but it seems a bit much. And it only runs that dump file if the database is empty or you're doing a migrate fresh.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So it wouldn't be used in production.
And I believe Laravel, I believe Taylor even mentioned you wouldn't typically do this in production, which I don't know how you prevent it, right? Because if it becomes part of the repo and you have a dev staging production environment, how do you say, okay, in production, don't run the schema file because it's production?
You wouldn't, because in production, all you're doing is a migrate, and that looks and says, there's already a migrations table. I'm going to continue migrations.
It's only pushing forward. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, one of the good things is it took me about 35 minutes. But I do have a UUID package out there. It's under DiegoDev Labs, and I included that on this project I was working on. And I didn't have to make any changes to the package. The package was fine. What I did have to do is I had to take into account there's a Teams table. So I installed it with Teams. So there was a Teams table I had to address. There's a user to Teams pivot table I had to address. And there's even a user ID in the sessions table. So that's just a matter of me going back and correcting those migrations. But like I said, the good news is the package works. So I have UUIDs. That was actually one of the things I was stressing about because I didn't want to have to figure all that out again with the new Laravel. And there was nothing to figure out. I was very, very happy about it. We also talked last week about the Laravel installer, which was released before the framework Laravel 8 was released. I mentioned that I had to uninstall the installer and reinstall it to get the current version. Well, it turns out that there's even another current version. It's already been iterated on. I was able to do a Composer global update for this one, but all it does is it streamlines a lot of the like I said, you have an option to install Jetstream. You have an option to install Inertia or Livewire. This allows you to do it all in one command again instead of having to answer questions the way it was set up. So it's a small update, and if you don't use that stuff, you might not even miss it. But it's easy enough to update.
So is this github.com/DiegoDev Labs? Because I'm not seeing that.
It's in the Trello board if you want to go to it. I actually don't know. Yeah, it's Diego Labs, actually. DiegoDev was apparently taken, I guess. Actually, I don't know why you didn't do DiegoDev. Oh, it's Diego Labs. It's not DiegoDev Labs. It's Diego Labs. Right. That's what we called it. Yeah. So it's Diego Labs on GitHub, and it's the UUID package that I've had out there. Even had a DiegoDev developer make some changes for me. It was sometime a couple months back, but yeah, it's out there. So short of that, so I do have a little bit of a problem, and I literally just did this around like 10 o'clock last night. I haven't gotten back to it, but like the email verification workflow wasn't working for me, and I've only done everything out of the box, so I haven't done anything custom with the exception of the UUID piece. And because I thought the UUID piece might have been part of the problem, I even did an install without the UUID piece, and my email verification workflow was still breaking. So I don't know. I guess if people are having a few problems with Jetstream. There was some back and forth on Twitter recently about some of the issues people are seeing with Jetstream and pros and cons of having it. So I don't know if this is the official. I don't sit there and hover through all the Laravel ecosystem jargon anymore. But from what I've seen of Jetstream, it looks like it's replacing the front end UI packages that you needed before. So remember, he had removed all the front end UI stuff. So if you wanted to scaffold your login and registration stuff, you had to include another package. This, from what I can tell, replaces that, and it's basically that on steroids. It's a registration, it's a authentication sign in, It's a profile management. I don't know. I don't think Teams is actually considered part of Jetstream, so let's not say that.
Yeah, it is. And optional team management, two-factor authentication, session
Two-factor
management.
authentication. Yep, session management. Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of goodness in it. I mean, it really kind of bootstraps your application with a lot of the normal grunt work you got to do to get a secure app up and running, and you can just start coding again. So I like it. I mean, I definitely think it's an improvement, and not. I have no issue with it at all, but I can't get my email verification workflow working.
Well, what
so.
version of 8 are you on? Because I've noticed that there's already 4.
Oh, I don't know. Like I said, I installed it last night. So I would have to go look. I couldn't tell you. Short of that,
I suppose one
so
day I'll get my Laravel application updated from 5 and get it up to 8 and try it out.
You got a long road ahead of you, my friend.
Yeah, it's like 10 classes, so it can't be that hard.
So I got something for you, John, that might interest you, might not interest you, because I know you're a little bit like me on this particular topic. So first off, full transparency, I don't think anybody will be surprised at this round table here, but I'm falling back in love with my Vim. Like, my Vim configuration had gotten so out of whack that I decided to scrap all my Vim stuff and start again with NeoVim, which is like the latest, greatest iteration of Vim. It's not Vim, it's NeoVim. It's a separate product. It's just completely Vim compatible. It turns out there's a bunch of backstory to all that. This is not what I'm here talking about. I'm just saying I've gotten more into Vim, but I still use PHP Storm for my development of PHP. And I know, or at least I believe, John, you were like me, where you weren't using PHP Storm's built-in Git management system. You would pop over the command line and do your Git stuff. Do you still do that?
No, I use PHP Storm for most of it. I use the command line for rebasing mainly, even though PHP Storms is pretty decent from what I've seen, but I'm just more comfortable with the command line for that one.
Okay.
But outside of that, I pretty much use PHP Storm.
And then maybe this won't interest you. I don't know why I still use the command line. It might have the fact that I have some very easy aliases, so it's easier for me to pop into the command line, do a GAA to add all my files, do a GCAM to put my message in and send it, instead of working my way through the clunky PHP Storm interface. But I found something very cool. Now, you guys have seen some of the terminal apps I use. So I've already mentioned, and I mentioned to a friend this week, that one of the things the Kinesis keyboard has got me doing is I've grown more and more frustrated with reaching for my mouse. So I'm finding that I'm doing more and more stuff in the terminal. And like I said, I've always done my Git stuff in the terminal. That wasn't a big thing. But I've shared with you guys some of the other terminal apps I use, like Lazy Docker was one, GoTop is another one, and there's another one out that I've really fallen in love with. I mean, I think it's actually better, hear you, than the built-in PHP Storm Git management system. It's called Lazy Git. It's a terminal-based application written in Go. And again, saying it as a terminal-based application is almost like a short sell, because, yeah, it's terminal-based, but you can still use your mouse and click around if that's who you are, or you can use key bindings and click around if you're more like me. But it's so cool because not only does it show you the files that are staged, but it right there in the interface, it shows you the diffs of that file that either it is staged or isn't staged. So it does the whole. It has a place for all the change files. It's by default they're not staged. You got to go through and stage them, or you can stage all of them. But when you click on one of them on the right hand side, it shows you what's changed in the file, which is actually something that's always driven me crazy. It's like, okay, what did I change in this file? And you can do it in Storm. At least the only way I know to do it in Storm is to double click on the file, and then it'll open up a diff for you. But this interface fantastic. It shows you all the commits, so you can click on any of the commits. And you can see a little Git log on the right hand side of what's in that commit. It's lazy Git is pretty cool. I almost always like whatever project I'm working on, whether I'm working on it in Vim or PHP Storm, I almost always have a window open of that project in lazy Git, just to kind of. It's very nice. You should check it out.
I might check it out. But I can tell you, when you go to commit within PHP Storm, you get that same, like, all your files where you can check and uncheck which ones you want to actually include in your commit. And then as you highlight it, you'll see the diff of what you are committing. And I believe there's a way within there where you can commit just pieces of a file, not the entire thing.
It's weird. So that's a feature in lazy Git as well. I'm like, why would you ever? That seems like very granular, granular thing. But
I often find myself, and I've complained to our developers about it in the past, where they're working on a feature and then they're like, oh, but I also want to just update this one thing, or I want to fix this typo, or I want to fix this that has nothing to do with the feature they're working on, where you can do that, commit that one piece, push it up, and open a PR just for that fix. It has nothing to do with your PR. I'm sick of seeing PRs with tons of files that, vary from, cleaning up code, refactoring, new features. It's like, no, when your PR is huge, you don't really review it. And that's not good for anybody. The whole point of a review is to give good feedback. So I want PRs small, tight, well-defined.
That's funny. And now that you say that, I have been in that use case where, I'm either that or I'm working on something and I see something broken. It's like, oh shit, I just need to change this one thing, not related to anything I'm working on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. That would be a good use case for that.
And I still do it all the time where I'm like, this one line is not that big of a deal. I'm going to include it in a PR. But when I'm doing a review, I know how much it annoys me. So it's got to be annoying other people. Mm-hmm. So I really need to be better at that.
Thomas, are you going to participate in this show, or are you just going to play with OBS this
I don't
entire
have a whole
time?
lot to say. You know what I've been doing all week?
You're on vacation.
Nothing. Just didn't. I've literally spent all my time playing with OBS as if that were my new job.
It's fun, right? I mean, once you have some time to focus on it.
Yeah, it doesn't always work the way you want it to. It's a very finicky little piece of software, but it's got some incredible stuff. And I'll probably end up writing a write-up on how we're using it, because getting it to this state and figuring out how other people get it to the similar state that we're in was not easy. There was a lot of research involved, so maybe put that all together in a blog post or something.
Okay, so you bring this up. I'm glad you brought this up. I have it on my to-do list to talk about as well. What do you think about the idea of doing a so the PHP Ugly website now just forwards to Simplecast.
Yeah.
And we use theirs. I've been thinking about doing the PHP website again. So like I'm talking about the tools I use, the lazy Git, the lazy Docker, the Go top, the H top. I'm like, I would love to have like somewhere to post, a tools list or when I come across new tools I use to post. I'm not a big Medium person. I don't like trying to maintain my own WordPress install, but if I did a PHP website, because one of the things we're doing now is all of our shows we're saving to a CouchDB. This is part of another project we worked on. That CouchDB now allows me to distribute our podcast, streams to anywhere I want to consume them at. And so I'm thinking like I could redo a PHP Ugly website where we could start doing blog posts. Like we could have a doom and gloom section where even if we don't talk about doom and gloom on the show, you have somewhere to go post to. If I did something like that, would you guys contribute to that?
No.
I would sure try to.
I appreciate your honesty.
You,
That's my only thing. Is like I always feel like I'm on the hook to do it all, and I'm like, okay, well, I really want this, but I don't want to be the only one having to write, articles and things like that. So
When you asked for a post on Medium, I contributed a couple, but then it kind of just fizzled.
it just fizzle, yeah.
I don't really
Like everything else,
Medium,
it's-
generally speaking, anyways. But
I mean, I think it would be cool, like, to show somebody the OBS setup, where we do that. I thought about just doing it on Patreon, but then I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to. I mean, we appreciate our Patreons. Thank you, Patreons. But we're not about putting up paywalls. I mean, you guys, the people on Patreon, they're getting awards, or not awards, they're getting things for their support for us. We appreciate that. But I'm not trying to hide content from people, I guess is what I'm saying.
Then you're doing it wrong.
I don't.
What?
I mean, I think that's the general idea overall, is that we're not the tailors. With the Taylor is so proactive about everything he does and his public image and the amount of work he does for blogs and public facing stuff, and it's like I just find that stuff so exhausting.
Mm.
I've tried to start up a blog a couple times, and it's like once I start writing out my opinion, my first thought is, God, no one wants to hear my opinion. Isn't a great position for a podcaster, but like, I don't know. I've always struggled with that stuff.
Mm. All right. Well, I don't know. Maybe I probably won't do it now, but I don't know. Maybe I will. I feel like I have these spurts of wanting to do things like this, and then I get it to a point, but I'm unable to maintain it. I've already got like this podcast. We got PHP Architect podcast. We got Community Corner for PHP Architect. I mean, I probably overcommitted on my free time already. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think
got that project we're working on.
it's something that that really makes me feel my age is when I look at young people who are doing all of this content production and media management stuff, and I think to myself, man, why am I not doing that? And then I realized that it took me 26 hours to get my first win on Fall Guys, and that was the more important thing to me for those several days.
Well, you also got to realize that they're younger because they don't need as much income. They're probably staying at home. They're viewing this as a career path, so they're spending most of their time. The ones that are successful are spending most of their time creating themselves,
Right.
creating their brand. So I applaud them for being able to do that. Unfortunately, I can't live on that kind of income right now with, being older, having family. You just can't. When you're younger, you have that
It
opportunity.
really is a pain in the ass.
Having kids and a family. Yeah.
Wouldn't trade it for the world. But also, no one's offered anything, so...
That's what your lawyer has asked you to say. Yeah.
I don't know what they're worth because I haven't gotten an offer yet.
Yeah. I've got some news, though, even though I've done nothing this week. A big update to Safari has rolled in, and it now supports the standardized web extensions API interface that Chrome, Firefox, and Edge all use. So now all the extensions that are available for all browsers.
I didn't know that was a thing between Chrome and Firefox.
Either did I.
Yep. There's little tweaks you have to make when you're writing an extension so that it acknowledges which browser is which, depending on what you want to do. But for the most part, yeah, they're just intercompatible now.
So you can install this pretty much the same extension. The extension is responsible for making sure it's using the right APIs.
Well, so the base API is the same now. It's the big thing is there's slight permission differences between the browsers. So you just have to be aware of that stuff. But besides that, I mean, now it's really just, it's all the same thing. Which, I mean, it's JavaScript, so it should have been a long time ago, but now it actually is.
Interesting. I forgot. I've written extensions for something. It may have just been for testing. I can't remember what it was for now. But it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, it is surprising.
If I could do it, anyone can.
I'm amazed there isn't more malware based on extensions. So
we had something. I'm sorry. I was just trying to think of what we had going on. What did we have where we had a lot of debugging recently? Because that's what I really love doing, and it seems like people spend too much time like spinning their wheels, and it's like, bring me in a little bit sooner so we can debug this. And we had that with our biggest client recently, and I can't remember what it came down to being. That frustrates me.
I think I remember the topic, but I don't know how I can share that.
Yeah, well, it was more just a generic concept I wanted to share, and now I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. I should have. If only we had a Trello board for this kind of stuff.
I started keeping a date, so I gotta stop speaking like that. It drives me nuts when I'm editing. I say and I start talking about, and then I start talking about something else, and back to what I was talking about. It drives me nuts, and I can't imagine why people listen to me. But I started listening to an audiobook, the very famous coding development, The Pragmatic Programmer. It has their 20th edition, and they convinced me to keep a day journal. And so I've been doing that for this week, and it's like you said, not like you said, John, but one of the problems I have is I always have these ideas or thoughts that I want to follow up on, and they're not really things I want to put on my to-do list because they're not really to-do things. And I used to try to do this in Evernote, but then I never look at the Evernote again. So I started keeping this day journal where whenever something pops in my mind, no matter how like minor I think it is or how much I'm like, oh yeah, I'll remember that tomorrow, I'll just put it in my day journal now. And I just have all this random stuff in there now. And it's kind of cool because I'll go, like, when I start my day journal for tomorrow, I'll look at what I did today, and then I'll get my day journal going. And I finally found good use to a tool I have, which, again, I was looking to replace Evernote with it. And then I'm like, no, this doesn't really work as a replacement for Evernote. It's called Notation. Notation is a very niche sort of thing that once you get your head around, which I think I'm finally getting there, it's actually pretty strong because everything in Notation, at least the way I'm getting my head around it now, every document, everything in there is a database, database, a data store, and you can include databases into other documents. So, like, we have I have a dashboard for DiegoDev. This is a little different than on topic. I have a dashboard for DiegoDev where I see all of our projects, I see all of our clients, I see all of our developers, and I can go to this dashboard and kind of get an overview of everything that's being worked on in the company with all our different clients. And then I drill into that because, we have weekly stand-up. So I'll drill into that particular project and record our weekly stand-up in that project. But I also have another database for general meetings where if I get pulled into a meeting, I capture it. And in my dashboards now, so I have a daily dashboard to kind of expand on that. In my daily dashboard, I can pull in these databases where I say, okay, show me any meetings I've had in the last week. and show me any projects that have had any activity. And when I say activity, it means I've gone in there and edited something in that project in the last week. And I don't know. It's only been like I said, I've only done this for about a week now, and I'm slowly starting to like it. And I don't know. It's kind of cool.
Are you able to share those dashboards?
I mean,
within Notation?
Yeah, yes. To answer your question, yes, but it wouldn't be like I can share with you the template I use to create mine, but like sharing my dashboard with you wouldn't make sense because it's all the stuff particular to me. But I can definitely show you like how I did it and create templates for it.
Well, I meant more like the one you're talking about for our meetings where you're running and you're talking to specific people about what they've worked on. Mm-hmm. We had a meeting the other day that you weren't able to make because you were out of the house, and I didn't have that same information that you had, so I just kind of blabbered on for 15 minutes without having specific talking points that you have.
Yeah, so we had another employee at DiegoDev that used Notation, and it does have team workspaces. So yes, there is a collaboration. Not only that, but we talked about browser plugins. Notation has a browser plugin, and I have certain databases in my Notation world that are like, I have one that's Laravel news articles I like. So whenever I come across a Laravel news article I want to save, I add it to this database. And I have the same thing for Laravel in general. I have the same thing for PHP in general. Those are actually databases I've thought about sharing publicly because they're just links to websites that interest me and that like Laravel packages that interest me. And I'm like, there's the ability to publicly share a database or Notation. I don't know what the naming convention is in there. And I've thought about doing that. I'm like, yeah, I should just share my Laravel links to the world, and if anybody wants to use them, they can use them. If they don't, they don't. And I still might do that. I don't know. I get very weird about opening up to the world. Again, strange comment coming from somebody doing podcasting, but.
Well, what else do we have?
Well, you talked, I think last week or maybe the week before, about how Oktoberfest is coming up and how you were getting excited about it. I apologize. You're absolutely correct. Hacktoberfest.
I mean, Oktoberfest too. And honestly, I might be a little more excited about Oktoberfest.
That's okay. So it does have a little different meaning. If you're not familiar with what Hacktoberfest is, it's sponsored by DigitalOcean. Correct, Thomas?
Yes.
Okay, it's a sponsored thing from DigitalOcean, and in the month of October, if you contribute to a certain amount of open source projects, you get a T-shirt from DigitalOcean, a Hacktober. I don't know what the threshold is this year. It's typically like 5 PRs. Like in the past, it's been like 5 PRs. The PRs don't have to be pulled in. You just have to open up PRs to an open source project. But those rules change a little bit every year. I don't know what this year's threshold is. I don't know what the rules are. But I do have a link to share with everybody. So as it turns out, I've gotten pretty well. No, I don't want to oversell this, but I've learned how to use Git search engine or GitHub's search engine to find things. Like just recently, I was looking for PRs that were recently closed, that were submitted by a particular developer. That the chain went on to a specific branch, and it just went on for a while. So I actually came up with a GitHub search that I had bookmarked. And quite honestly, maybe I didn't come up with it. Maybe I found this somewhere. I don't even know anymore. But I have a GitHub search string that will share the link in the show notes. That if you're interested in Hacktoberfest, this all comes back around. Trust me. Enjoy this journey with me. It's a little bit of a bumpy ride, but I'll get there. If you are interested in Hacktoberfest, this link will show you open source projects that are related to PHP that have been specifically tagged as a good first issue PR or issue. What that means,
I like this.
what it's meant to mean is that these are project maintainers that are like, hey, if you want to do a PR, here's an issue to work on. This is a good first issue for you. It shouldn't be too difficult. It shouldn't be too hard. You shouldn't have to know the code base too much. This is a good first issue. So I have a string now that gives you PHP open source good first issues to go tackle. And if you want to get into Hacktoberfest, go to GitHub, go to this link, check it out, and start plucking these things off. I'm contributing. I'm giving back. I'm contributing.
Funny enough,
I
your
told you,
contribution will not count for Hacktoberfest.
We gamed this one year. If you guys don't recall,
remember.
We used to do our show notes on GitHub, and we just we just let everybody edit our show notes and open up PRs for show notes.
Yeah.
I thought it was a brilliant idea.
I don't know.
Of
if
course,
the legal issue with that has worn off yet.
No, I'm pretty sure we're the reason why there are more rules. Like they looked at us and like, these assholes. I had a lot to drink tonight, by the way. My earlier tweet, I've been drinking a lot of wine, and I'm crashing.
Have you guys seen the story about Amazon drivers hanging phones in trees?
What?
You've had this on your Trello board for a couple of weeks. I had to go look this up myself because I'm like, this is nutty, man. And I actually think I found a better link than the one you have in here. I meant to share it with you and I forgot.
The one that I have here was the original article from a couple weeks ago, and they didn't explain the technical issue that well.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, as an Amazon driver, you're given a bunch of packages, and when you come within range of the warehouse to pick up more packages, then they allocate them to you. So,
well, I think it stretches beyond that. I think this is what I read in the other article. Maybe is it also because Amazon also owns, what is it, Sprouts? They own some grocery store chain.
Whole Foods.
Whole Foods. There you go. And I think this is related to that as well. Like I think Whole Foods is doing home deliveries, and it's the same thing. Like these Amazon drivers are leaving their phones like at the Whole Foods, and when a delivery pops up, it shows that they're already at the Whole Foods. Let's give them the delivery, and then they're like basically gaming the system.
Right, and that's the thing that was interesting to me, was that this is a level of gaming the system that, like, there's no automation, there's no tooling, there's nothing you can do about this. This is just bad people, and they're gonna win. Like, they're always gonna win this game.
So once they get the order, they have to, I guess, put the address in their another phone to get where they're going?
It's not entirely clear, but it appears that they have a partner in this who checks the phones that are hanging from the trees and accepts incoming requests for deliveries. And so then they get texted on their personal phone that they've got pickups here, here, and here. And I can't see it as being incredibly efficient, but I mean, if you make another 5 pickups in a day, that could be $60. So,
And the actual article I read, I should look for that again because I keep referencing it, but like Amazon still hadn't acknowledged that it's a real thing. Like they've only acknowledged that this is something that we've gotten some complaints about and we're looking into it, but I haven't heard any like, oh yeah, no, this is happening. Well, we're going to figure out how to fix this, or we don't care about it. I haven't seen any kind of media like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, not all the
I'm gonna read more on that because I'm curious.
not all the information is out there, but it's it struck me as funny because it's gaming the system, and any system that's big enough, you're gonna have this kind of problem, and who knows what Amazon's gonna be able to do about it.
Mhm. And honestly, I mean, what do you think they care? Like maybe the user experience, as far as they expected to get their package in 30 minutes and it took 45 minutes. Maybe they're a little concerned about that, but they got their package, right? I mean, as long as it's delivered within some threshold that I'm sure they're monitoring, and they would address whether somebody's gaming the system or not. I don't know if Amazon cares. Now, the drivers care because the people who are trying to do it honestly are complaining that, hey, we can't make an honest buck. You got these guys hanging phones off trees.
Right.
That's that's their concern. But end of day, it's like Amazon is like, yeah, that sucks for you, right? Yeah.
But they can do something about it, right? They could have a app that you have to install, which I'm sure they already have, but they could do more tracking of the GPS location and specific phone that it's on.
Well, that's the thing is that's
the
the phone that's hanging
hasn't
from the
moved.
tree.
That's
Right,
the
but
thing.
they could.
If the phone hasn't moved in like the last 2 hours, it's like, okay, well, we're not going to worry about this guy because apparently he's just sitting in the parking lot. Let's find
and
somebody
they know,
who's actually working.
And they know where they're supposed to be going, so they could be monitoring and make sure they're going to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But
It's
we don't have to solve their problem for them.
They don't pay us for
yeah,
that.
not nearly enough.
No.
Well, if you're a developer out there, I tweeted this earlier this week. I also saw a tweet from our buddy Dave Stokes that if you are still on MySQL 5.6, that's end of lifing. I mean, it's end of lifing very soon, like the next couple. I think it was next 6 months or something, or next 6 months.
This really surprised me.
Life.
But then I realized
Why?
I was stupid to be surprised because, holy crap, that's old.
Right. That's the thing. It's like, I mean, we've been on 5.7 for a while, so it's like, yeah, but just like anything else, it's going to keep working. It's an open source data store. It doesn't stop working. Your license doesn't run out, so you're just not going to get any updates to it anymore. So that's a decision you need to make as a developer, whether or not it's a risk you want to live with or not. But it's a data store. It shouldn't be that difficult to. It's not like it's a PHP version jump or a Laravel version jump. There's some new things in there, but for the most part, pretty easy thing to upgrade to.
Yeah, the behavior is
but
not
not necessarily identical. There are concerns around query performance. There's people spend a lot of time optimizing their query for their specific version that may not work the exact same way on the newer version. I know that's FoamBurner's reason for not upgrading so far is there are so many very expensive queries that run on the database that have taken forever to try and optimize, trying to force specific indexes to be used because MySQL didn't seem to be getting it right for some reason. And throwing a little hack in there, it just seemed like the query ran so much better. And you try and run that in a newer version of MySQL, it just doesn't seem to work as well.
Well, I think that's because the problem got fixed.
Possibly. I mean, I don't know specific queries. I know people are looking into it and supposed to be trying it, but there is a very big fear of making that upgrade on a production system and having the performance take a hit because you made that decision.
Yeah, and I can understand, but I mean, it's the same problem with Intel's Spectre bugs, where when they had to patch their CPU bugs, people took like a 10% CPU hit, and all the server farms had to do it because the risk of damage over the risk of the loss in performance was just, you had to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, once this is completely end of life, let's say 2 years down the line, where people accepted that they're not going to have a patch, there's a gigantic bug that causes the entire internet to become vulnerable to this one thing. You know, you're going to end up paying $100,000 in downtime and repairs instead of the $10,000 in annual computation fees that you now have to experience.
Right.
So it's a balance.
Yeah. And trust me, I want to get up to the latest version. I'm hoping that people are taking it seriously and running tests as best they can, because there are a lot of cool new features that would be great to take advantage of.
Yep.
Fun stuff.
I got one more thing that's been, well, actually 2 more things. If you want some doom and gloom, I've got some great doom and gloom for you. Right now, you guys are melting. The entire state, I believe, is on fire.
Literally.
On Monday, the temperature here was 85 degrees, and on Tuesday, it was 32. And it snowed about 6 inches.
Did it really?
It did.
Wow.
But
I mean, we kind of had the same thing out here. I walked out to my car on Monday, and it was covered in ash. I mean, it's kind of like snow.
Well, 2 weeks ago, we had a thunderstorm, which I've gotten very used to living here, except that this thunderstorm hit our house, which I've never experienced before. I've never had been in a house that got hit by lightning, and it threw sparks outside the outlets in the house. Visible sparks came out of the outlets.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, and it looked like everything was okay until I went to watch some TV shows that night, and my poor Raspberry Pi 4 just was dead. It's just toast.
Do you want to hear one of the funnier childhood stories I have? One of the stories that the family talks about to this day?
Of course.
It's related. So grew up back east. I was born in D.C., but lived in Maryland my entire life. And my sister and I, we didn't really, we didn't hang out. We weren't real brothers and sisters growing up. There was a 5-year gap, and now since childhood we've reconnected, and we have a pretty strong relationship and bond now. But there was always a big enough gap as children where we didn't get along. We didn't know. We were just 2 people living in the same house that shared the same parents. And of course, she was always in charge of babysitting me. And this is the when was this? 70s, mid to late 70s. And I was young. I mean, I don't know how young I was, but I was in school. I mean, I was old enough to walk around. We had a couple cats and a dog. We had a mousy cat who was this mothering cat. She had 2 or 3 litters of kittens. She's a very affectionate cat. Loved that cat to death. We had another cat we called Amanda Mean Kitty. This was a very angry cat. I mean, just angry to the core. As a child, I was terrified of this stinking cat. I hated this cat. And there was always this very strict rule in the house. If there's lightning outside, the television goes off. This was the old big tube TV. Apparently there was a reason for this. My dad was very insistent of it. And we all knew this was a steadfast rule. There was no wiggle room in this rule. This one day, my sister's babysitting me, and there was something on television. It was Paramedics 911 or something that she loved watching. So we bent the rule. It was raining outside. There was some lightning. Wasn't that bad. It was distant lightning, but it wasn't too bad. and she was going to watch the show. God damn, if lightning doesn't hit, so it doesn't technically hit our house. We lived in this, I don't know what you call them, but back east they had houses where two homes would be butted up against each other. They weren't townhomes. Like we had
duplexes.
Yeah, duplexes.
They are duplexes. So we lived in a duplex. So technically the lightning struck the house next to us in this duplex. This lady who lived in this house was this complete hoarder, caught her entire attic on fire. We thought our attic was on fire because we're like, first thing, our television goes completely out. And we're like, oh shit, Dad's gonna be so pissed. Because I mean, our television, well, it was more than a television. It was like a record player, a radio. It was this huge unit that must have weighed like 500 pounds. I mean, it was like part of the living room. And we're like, oh my God, we're in so much trouble. The television, lightning and television. What's that smoke? What's happening? And we go up and open up the attic, and all this smoke comes pluming out of our attic. So my sister's like, yeah, we got to get out of here. We got to go to the neighbor's house. The house is on fire. We thought our house was on fire. Fortunately, it was the neighbor's house, and there were firewalls. So the firewall was actually 2 layers of brick between the 2 houses. So we were, for the most part, okay. But we're racing through the house. We get the dog, and we come up to the cats, and she's holding Mousy Cat, and she's like, get the Amanda cat. Let's go. I'm like, no, that cat can burn. I'm not picking that cat up. It's like, what? We gotta go. Man, let's go. No, screw this cat. So she hands me Mousy, lovey mother cat, and she picks up Amanda Mean Kitty. We hit the outside where by this time it's pouring down raining. Mousy cat tears me to pieces. And the Amanda Mean Kitty like snuggles into my sister's chest and like, just get me out of the rain. We're good. And I ended up with all these damn scratches. We did for like years after that, a color television, because the big television died, and the only other television we had was black and white. It's all because we had the television playing with lightning strike. So that was my story.
Yeah, well, immediately, when we got hit, I immediately turned all the electronics off and like started smelling around the house like a cat, just sniffing everything. But no, it took me 2 weeks to get the Kodi box up and running again, because I tried to get it working and fix it, and I couldn't get it fixed. I ordered a new one. The new one came in. HDMI completely failed on it. So I had to RMA that. So my third one finally works. I popped in the SD card from the old one, booted it up, and it basically just said, hey, it's been 2 weeks. Where you guys been? But everything was still working. It was like nothing ever happened. It was very nice.
Oh, lucky.
But now I have boxes and boxes of USB cables and HDMI cables and converters and stuff. It's a mess. But there it is.
It must be nice to have weather. It must be nice for lightning to strike and like the whole, half of the state doesn't go up in fire and smoke. I mean, that must be a pleasant thing.
Well, we had that, but then the weather dropped to, 32 degrees. So we had one day where we had the giant orange sky full of smoke, but then it started snowing.
Seems like the entire coast is orange last week.
Yep. That's what you get for not sweeping your leaves. All right.
You said you had 2. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you said you had 2 things.
Well, I was going to bring up the content visibility thing, the new CSS property that boosts performance.
I actually had a question about this one for you. I read this article. Again, I thought we were going to talk about last week, but we didn't. But if I'm looking at this right, I mean, yeah, it's you went from under a second to more under a second. Is that really that big of a deal? I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. explain what it is, I guess, first, because I kind of spoiled that one.
So it's a new CSS property that basically says, don't render this content until it's visible on the page. So after the fold, basically. What's interesting to me is they show examples of a very good implementation where you have collections of images and text and stuff. They don't show a bad implementation and what that looks like, which would be just adding this tag to every element. So, like, would it make performance worse if all the stuff was incorrectly tagged as content visibility auto? I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was. I read it because I'm like, hey, I'm not a big CSS person, but I'm always interested when there's these articles of, oh yes, CSS can help boost your performance of your website. I'm like, all right, good CSS is good CSS. I'm looking at this. I'm like, all right, you went from what 232 milliseconds of rendering to 30 milliseconds of rendering. It's okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that all that's still under a second?
Well, but the total rendering time went down by a second.
Okay. Still, I got seconds to spare. I'm willing to run all my goddamn migrations. I've got seconds. I'm not that worried.
Though. You remember back in the day when Google's landing page was just the search bar, that was the game changer.
Oh, not back in the day. To this day, we have clients that talk about search engine optimizations and this and squeezing every nanosecond out of the rendering of a page because you'll get a higher ranking.
Yeah, but people really do care about that half a second of rendering time.
Nah, I don't.
For people may not, but if it does affect your rankings, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Don't care.
And you're also looking at that specific example. If it is as beneficial as it says on a very large page, that could add up to more than a second.
Yeah, because I have some very large pages that it definitely would help with. My problem is my very large pages aren't broken up into above the fold and below the fold. It's just broken up into container and then a billion objects. So I don't know. It really feels like you're just going to have to do it no matter what to get your Google rankings up, even if it doesn't help you. But it applies some interesting sort of assumed calculations. There's a contain intrinsic size, which says when you're calculating this stuff, when you're calculating the total layout, calculate it as if the content beyond the fold won't break beyond this size. So if you do implement it poorly, it could really ugly up your web page. As you scroll, things will start shifting in size because you didn't calculate things correctly.
Yeah, sorry, I don't do CSS. It's such a pain in the ass.
Really is. I really do hate CSS. So that's why I was going to bring it up.
Sounds like we're at the end.
Said no.
And then Eric made you do it anyway.
Yep.
I'm a dick like that. I think that's been well established.
Classic. It's the classic formula for us.
Okay, that's it. Episode 205. We're done. I'm Eric.
No.
I'm John.
Hold on. We do have to thank our Patreons. Thank you.
Thank you, Patreon.
Patrons
on Patreon. Is that an updated list?
Since I'm doing it, no, it's probably not an updated list. Because I can't get into Patreon now.
Oh, that's right. You added that 2 factor onto it, John.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So let me know when you log You know, I'll send you the two factor. We're not trying to ice you out, man. I promise.
All right, so that's it.
Oh, we have to do the ending again? I'm John.
I'm Eric.
I'm Tom. Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
Yeah, we have to do the ending again. We have to do it the right way.
Jesus, that's a lot of stories. I've tried to automate this. I can't get it to automate correctly.
Is there an API for Trello?
There is. I've tried to automate it through like Zapier or if this then that, and none of it worked. I don't know. Maybe I do need to look at the actual API and see if I can just write something.
I sure am hoping that Zencaster worked because my local did not.
What happened?
Well, I started the recording, but I didn't start the other part of the recording because
did that again.
Audio hijack is in 2 locations. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. I mean, Zencaster's been pretty solid lately. The worst case was YouTube.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one actually exporting to Dropbox still.
Yeah.
Probably.
What do you guys think of the OBS stuff? Pretty fancy, huh?
I'm having a real hard time seeing your screen, and everything's you and John are super pixelated to me. Your OBS.
There you go. Whatever you just moved has been covering the screen.
Yeah. That's the multi-cam thing. That's what I need to switch scenes.
How many monitors do you have? You only have the one monitor?
On this machine, yeah.
Oh, okay, that explains it then. Yeah, it was hard to see. For me, it kept freezing. Like I said, for some reason, your screen is pretty crystal clear, but it's very laggy. But you and John, I pulled your images down to look at you, and it's horrible. Like you guys are so pixelated. You're so lagged.
It's got to be because I've got the streams looking beautiful.
Yeah, it looks fine on my end too. You talking about the full size where you drag this down? Are pixelated? That's weird because you're both clear.
I'll even do a screenshot here. Not that I don't think you don't trust me, but so you can appreciate how bad it is. And I've turned everything off on my system. Everything, every sync thing I have, every back I have, everything is off. I realized about halfway through the show that I was on my screen here to the right, and I'm looking at you, and my camera's here. I'm like, oh shit! I had a profile that whole freaking time. This is what I'm looking at here. Yeah, I'm gonna send it in black. That might take a while to 6 megabit upload, but it'll get there.
I got it.
Oh.
I'm beat tonight. Whew. Oh wow.
That is horrible.
That's definitely you.
And I'm hardwired. I mean, Wi-Fi is turned. Oh, Wi-Fi is not turned off. Wonder if that's the problem. Oh, I had been turning off Wi-Fi, but then I went out to Arizona. I had to turn it on, and I must have forgotten to turn it back off. I wonder if I turn it off, if you guys will go away. Let's find out. Oh, you're still there, but you're still all pixelated. I don't know, man. I need to really spend some time on my network or something.
You doing any sort of backup at the same time, but not the whole show, so it doesn't make sense.
Well, how old
yeah,
is
I have everything turned off. It's new. I mean, it's the newer model of Macs. It's got the touch bar, but it has the escape key, right? Yeah.
It's the 16-inch, the new one.
I don't know, man. I got notification. My System 76 machine shipped today, so I'll get that in. See if that makes a difference.
All right.
I'll let you guys go play your game. Talk to you later.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to tonight. I think it's from the minimal focus of Fall Guys is all I can put up with.
Why can't I hang up?
All right, have a good night, guys.
Oh, okay.
Bye.